In Jerusalem, the walls stood complete. The temple rose on its ancient hill. The people had heard the law and wept and rejoiced. A fragile restoration was taking root in the land of Judah. But most of the Jewish people did not live in Jerusalem. They were scattered across the vast Persian Empire, from India to Ethiopia, 127 provinces ruled by a single throne. They lived in cities they had not built, worked in trades passed down through generations of exile, and held on to their identity in a world that often forgot they existed. This is the story of one such community, and one remarkable woman who would save them all. The book of Esther never mentions God's name, not once, and yet his fingerprints are everywhere, in the timing, the coincidences, the reversals that no human hand could orchestrate. This is a story about providence working in the shadows, about deliverance that comes through the courage of those who step forward when the moment demands it. The story takes place in Susa, the Citadel, the winter palace of the Persian kings. The year was the third of King Xerxes, the ruler the Hebrews called Ahasuerus. His empire was secure, his treasury was full, and he decided to throw a party. For 6 months he displayed the vast wealth of his kingdom and the splendor and glory of his majesty. Then, at the end of this display, he hosted a 7-day banquet for all the people in the citadel, from the greatest to the least. The garden courtyard of the palace was decorated with white and blue linen hangings, fastened with cords of fine linen and purple. Couches of gold and silver rested on marble floors. Wine flowed freely in golden goblets, each one different from the next. There was no limit and no compulsion. Each guest could drink as much or as little as he wished. At the same time, Queen Vashti gave a separate banquet for the women in the royal palace. On the 7th day, when the king's heart was merry with wine, he commanded his 7 eunuchs to bring Queen Vashti before him wearing her royal crown. He wanted to display her beauty to the people and nobles, for she was lovely to look at. But Queen Vashti refused. The text does not explain why. Perhaps she found the command degrading. Perhaps she refused to be paraded before a crowd of drunken men. Whatever her reasons, she said no. The king was furious. His face burned with anger. He consulted his advisors, the 7 nobles who had special access to his presence. One of them, Memucan, gave this counsel: Vashti has wronged not only the king, but every noble and every citizen of the empire. When word of her refusal spreads, women throughout the kingdom will despise their husbands. Every man will face rebellion in his own home. Let a royal decree go out, irrevocable as the laws of the Persians and Medes, that Vashti may never again come before the king. Let her royal position be given to someone better than she. The advice pleased the king. The decree was issued. Letters were sent to every province in every language, proclaiming that every man should be ruler over his own household. Vashti was banished. The throne beside the king stood empty. Later, when the king's anger cooled, he remembered Vashti. He remembered what she had done and what had been decreed against her. His advisors noticed his brooding. Let a search be made for beautiful young virgins throughout the empire, they suggested. Let officers be appointed to bring them to the citadel of Susa. Let them be placed under the care of Haggai, the king's eunuch in charge of the women. Let them be given beauty treatments. And let the young woman who pleases the king become queen instead of Vashti. The plan pleased the king. And so began a kingdom-wide search for the next queen of Persia. In the citadel of Susa, there lived a Jewish man named Mordecai, a descendant of the tribe of Benjamin. His family had been carried into exile from Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar, and they had remained in Persia ever since. Mordecai had a cousin named Hadassah, whose Hebrew name meant myrtle. She also had a Persian name, Esther. Esther was an orphan. Her father and mother had died when she was young. Mordecai had taken her in as his own daughter, raising her with care and devotion. The girl was lovely in form and features. When the king's order was proclaimed and many young women were gathered to the citadel, Esther was among them. She was taken to the king's palace and placed in the harem under the care of Haggai. She pleased him and won his favor. Immediately he provided her with beauty treatments and special food. He assigned 7 female attendants from the palace and moved her to the best place in the harem. But Esther kept a secret. Mordecai had instructed her not to reveal her Jewish identity. She did not tell anyone about her people or her family background. Why the secrecy? The text does not say. Perhaps Mordecai feared prejudice against Jews in the Persian court. Perhaps she sensed dangers that others did not see. Whatever the reason, Esther obeyed. Every day, Mordecai walked back and forth near the courtyard of the harem, watching for news of his adopted daughter. The preparation process lasted 12 months. 6 months of oil of myrrh, 6 months of perfumes and cosmetics. Only then could a young woman go to the king. When her turn came, each woman could take anything she wanted from the harem to the king's palace. She would go in the evening and return in the morning to a second harem, under the custody of another eunuch. She would not return to the king unless he summoned her by name. Month after month, young women came and went. Most were never called again. Then it was Esther's turn. She asked for nothing except what Haggai, the king's eunuch in charge of the harem, suggested. She trusted his judgment. She did not demand special treatment or exotic luxuries. And she won the favor of everyone who saw her. In the 10th month of the 7th year of King Xerxes, Esther was taken to the royal palace. The king loved her more than any of the other women. She won his favor and approval more than any of the other virgins. He set a royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. A great banquet was given in her honor. The king proclaimed a holiday throughout the provinces and distributed gifts with royal generosity. Esther, the Jewish orphan, sat on the throne of Persia, but she still kept her secret. She did not reveal her nationality or family background. She continued to follow Mordecai's instructions just as she had when he was raising her. Mordecai, meanwhile, was sitting at the king's gate, the place where royal officials conducted business and petitioners waited for audiences. It was a position of some significance. One day, Mordecai learned of a plot. 2 of the king's officers, Bigthana and Teresh, who guarded the doorway, had become angry with the king. They conspired to assassinate him. Mordecai reported this to Queen Esther, who told the king and gave credit to Mordecai. The plot was investigated and found to be true. The 2 conspirators were impaled on poles. The entire incident was recorded in the book of the annals in the king's presence. Mordecai had saved the king's life, but he received no reward. The record was written in the chronicles and then forgotten, buried in the archives, waiting for its moment. Esther remained queen. Mordecai remained at the gate. And in the wings, a man named Haman was rising through the ranks of power, carrying with him an ancient hatred that would soon threaten every Jew in the empire. Thank you for listening to this episode of Exile and Return. If this story of Esther's unexpected rise to the Persian throne moved you, please subscribe, like, and share this video. In the next episode, Haman's fury towards Mordecai ignites a plan for genocide. The decree goes out. Every Jew in the empire is marked for death, and Esther must decide whether to risk her life by revealing her secret.